scab for the bosses, don't listen to their lies. Us poor folks haven't got a chance unless we organize.
Good morning, Vietnam!
Oh,
that's beautiful. That sounded like Robin Williams, actually. You were really channeling his energy.
Much like Mother God, he actually is one of my spirit contacts, so he came into me at that moment.
All right. That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the past 3 weeks, as we've been talking about the Cold War, talking about and doing the research for this episode, people in that time have asked me how I am, and I'll usually just say well, because that's what you say,
right?
But what I should really say is that I'm deeply contemplating the atrocities of the Vietnam War, because that's all I've really been thinking about.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just a wider metaphor for leftism, you're on the outside, you're yeah, I'm good, working. And then on the inside, you're the CIA is a terrorist organization.
Yeah. On the inside, you're I can't enjoy anything because everything we do is tainted with the horrors of capitalism.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's how my week's been going. Oh, yeah, this is Remarks.
Oh, my God. That's right. I'm Phoebe.
I am Taylor, and this is Moonshine.
She's circling around our... Oh, she's right here. Hi. And obviously, based on that whole entrance, we're talking about the Vietnam War.
We're talking about Vietnam, baby.
Hi, sweetie.
Yeah, we're going to do a little dissection. I'm doing just the overview of the Vietnam War, just a little more fleshed out than my prior talking about it. And... sorry, Moonshine is really wanting to be on the table.
Technical difficulties.
And then Phoebe's going to talk about some responses back home, back in the United States to the Vietnam War.
Yes.
So fun stuff, all in store for you.
Super exciting.
Super exciting.
Not a big ass bummer at all.
Yeah, not insanely depressing. Anyway, let's get into this. So let's
get into it. Yeah.
Let's do it. So, Vietnam, a country, pattern after China down to the civil system and the school system when it was first established. Ruled by the Nguyen dynasty, which was the last dynasty to rule a more unified Vietnam from about 1802 to 1884. In 1858, 2 French missionaries were executed in Vietnam, causing the French to do an imperialism and invade the country. And thus began the French era of Vietnam.
I'm in my French era.
Vietnam was in its French era, yeah. Though the French claimed that they would be kind overseers of the country, they often used the Vietnam people for cheap labor and as indentured servants.
What? I'm shocked.
I'm so surprised.
I love that they were we promise we'll be so nice to you guys.
And don't worry, y'all. We're gonna be really cool.
Don't worry about us. Completely taking over your country and invading.
Because I feel like Britain and even kind of America at that time, they were kind of hey, France, are you chill to do an imperialism? And France is dude, I'm cool. All right, I'll play it cool at the party.
I'm not gonna freak out this time.
Yeah, I'm not gonna freak out, dude. It's fine. The French began to tax the fuck out of the people because, of course, they did, and the Vietnamese people began to lose their land to wealthy landowners who could afford all of the taxes. Again, classic imperialist shit. Good thing America has never done anything like that ever in its history, up until today, because I think I was telling you last time, I've only read history up until the American Revolution.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure that America's never done anything bad, as a country, right?
No, not at all.
No, never done. Never had a single thing.
Definitely not even before the Revolutionary War happened.
Not at all. Ho Chi Minh was a revolutionary nationalist that eventually became the leader of North Vietnam. National in this case, it's not necessarily how nationalist is used now. I mean, I guess in some ways it is just being very pro Vietnam and keeping it's like hard to compare like a nationalist in the United States with like a nationalist in a country that's like suffering under imperialism, you know?
Right.
Because it's like, yeah, they didn't want foreigners, but those foreigners were the French who were like taxing the fuck out of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little different, I guess, but it is believed that Ho Chi Minh had around 70 other identities that he would use over his career in, political activism against the French. He was mainly attempting to give native Vietnamese folks a voice in the French parliament, but would later in life be converted to communism after reading the writings of our man's Vladimir Lenin. Hey, our boy. Friend of the pod. Old homie,
Vlad.
Vlad.
We're on a first name, nickname basis with them.
I feel like that's very true. Yeah, like me and good old Vlad, like we have coffee like every other week.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny to think of a time when communism wasn't as demonized by the propaganda machine, and people would just read about it and be like, "Yeah, that's actually kind of sick." In 1930, Ho Chi Minh establishes the Indo-Chinese Communist Party.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just, you read the actual books and you're like, damn.
You're like, shit.
Kind of tight, actually.
We should be doing this,
We should
you
kind of be
guys.
doing this shit. Yeah, what the fuck?
You guys want to be communists together?
You like want to be communists? Yeah. We're gonna do like a radicalization episode at some point where we just talk about like our own paths to becoming more politically active.
Mm-hmm.
And I got some just funny stories of like realizations I've had. But we'll save that for that episode.
Yeah.
After World War II, he merged different communist factions into the League for the Independence of Vietnam, Communist Avengers, if you will, also called the Viet Minh. The Communist A-Team. Established a provisional government after the fall of Japan and fought the French to keep control of the country. This war lasted 9 years, and the Viet Minh also got support from the commie folk in China. Mm-hmm. So obviously, China and the Soviet Union being kind of the communist superpowers at the time, big support there. In response, Harry Truman sent $1 million to aid the French in 1952.
Jesus Christ, Harry.
Because America ain't going to sit out of some good old imperialism.
Yeah.
You're doing an imperialism, we want in on that shit.
Especially if communism's involved. They're like, ooh.
They're like,
that's my stuff.
A democratically elected socialist leader? Oof. Sounds like we got to be doing some fucking psyops, baby. Yeah, it's good stuff. After beating the French and splitting Indochina into multiple countries, Diem overthrew the leader of South Vietnam with the help of the United States. It was around this time Ho Chi Minh and his advisors, my apologies, came up with the best way to fight their capitalist rivals. They decided the best force they could use was guerrilla warfare. Mm-hmm. Because, as we know, America kind of has a lot of guns.
Yup.
North Vietnam land reform was basically a big land reform bill that was passed by Ho Chi Minh in North Vietnam. And there was like, it's kind of like, I shouldn't say it's funny, but like they were, doing these land reforms, and, a bunch of landowners got killed because in revolutions that'll often happen. Mm-hmm. And then like the North like apologized, like they like had like an apology statement where they were like, things got a little out of hand, we didn't mean for it to get that crazy. And it just, I don't know, the way it was written, like when I was reading up on it, it was like, it just sounded like this cute little like YouTube apology video where like, I made a mistake.
I choked on my coffee because I was laughing. Sorry, that was hideous.
It is okay.
You guys are getting some good like cough ASMR this episode.
Good cough ASMR.
Woof.
But yeah, so that was that. Rebels in South Vietnam wanted to overthrow the government, and wanting to overthrow the government were called the Viet Cong, so the ones that had sided with the North. JFK was pressured by the U.S. military to send 23,000 troops to aid South Vietnam, and he was worried he would be defeated like the French were years earlier. So JFK, a little hesitant to go balls deep into Vietnam, as the kids might say.
Yeah. Also, side note, do you know, like, when the term, like, X amount of troops, does that mean, like, 20, or however much you said, 20,000, like, individual soldiers, or, like,
yeah,
little groups or whatever?
I think that it would be like actual troops in this scenario. I'm not exactly sure, because I know like with Vietnam we had like American military advisors over there before we like officially sent troops over, because we were still trying to like play it low key and be like, oh, we're not fucking around. It's just some dudes. I don't know, like
they're just hanging out
they're
over
just
there,
chilling, dude. Like they just like Vietnam. I don't know what you're talking
they're
about.
having a fun vacation. Yeah. So it's like units or whatever.
Yeah, I guess units or troops or yeah, and I don't know, like I don't know enough military stuff to like know if there's like I don't know, does a tank count as like part of a unit, like I don't know.
I see. Yeah, I don't fucking know either.
And so JFK fucking called it. He was absolutely right.
Yep.
We did get our asses kicked in Vietnam. It was around this time, 1960 to 1961, the U.S. sent around 1,600 military advisors into South Vietnam. And this was when the U.S. began to consider using a little thing called Agent Orange and chemical warfare. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. Also, this entire operation was called Operation Beef Up, which I just thought was funny. And, like, let me show you, I wrote it, like, in all capital letters.
Beef up.
Beef up. Yeah, like.
Why is this under JFK still?
Yeah.
Every operation, he named it the dorkiest fucking name he could possibly think of.
He was a giant dork,
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote underneath the capital letters beef up, which sounds like a protein shake, lol.
Yeah, it does. That's like a pre-workout name.
Exactly. Like beef up, yeah, like
Beef
that's
up.
for sure. Or just like a fitness account on Instagram.
Promote it on Beef Up.
Beef up. Cable 1006 was a set of rules forbidding the media from criticizing Diem and American presence in Vietnam, which sounds like a very good freedom of the press to me. While the North was continuing to jack up their army with Chinese support, South Vietnamese soldiers and higher-ups were feeding the U.S. incorrect and skewed numbers to appease the U.S. and keep military aid coming. So there's a big incentive for the South to be like, hey, like, we're super winning this war. Like, it's kind of crazy how fucking good we are at war right now. So you should just keep sending us, like, war stuff because, like, we're on a roll, dude.
Oh, my God.
So everybody in the U.S. was like, nah, fam, we fucking good. And they were, in fact, not good. That's how I wrote that, yeah. They were, in fact, not good.
Not good.
I don't think it can be overstated how much the Southern government fucked up. Like, they were trying to regain the support of the Southern Vietnamese people. And by, like, going through and boosting the Southern Vietnamese morale. And this brings us to our first, actually it might be our only pop quiz of the episode.
Awesome.
How do you think the South was trying to win over the Southern Vietnamese people?
Okay.
A, build hospitals and schools. B, relocating them to a military-occupied zone or secure area. Or C, burn their houses down and force them to leave.
Ooh. In the pit of my heart, I have a strong feeling that it's C.
You are correct, but it's actually,
God.
again, secret answer D, all of the above.
Oh, okay.
They did want to try to build more hospitals and schools to incentivize more, like, morale. Did they get around to it? Not really.
Yeah. I was like, that's way too nice and generous
it's too, like,
and actually
cool
helpful.
of a thing, yeah. But yeah, no, it was, and I mean, they did relocate people by burning their houses down and forcing them to leave, so.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, if you were a Southern Vietnamese villager, you probably wouldn't like the government very much either.
Yeah, no.
Though the Southern military was better armed than the civilian militants of the Viet Cong, the Viet Cong was more knowledgeable of the terrain and the art of guerrilla warfare. Mm-hmm. These people were fighting for their homes and in a terrain they've lived in for years. So, you know, I feel like a big thing that you hear with the Vietnam War is like the dedication from like the Viet Cong to like just going like just fucking killing a bunch of Southern and American troops and stuff. And I mean, and it just makes sense because it's like literally they're defending their homes from like these nations. Like, of course they're gonna fight with much more vigor than like an American soldier who was drafted and is 19 years old, like
and doesn't fucking want to be there.
Does not want to be there. Yeah,
and is hot and has 18 mosquito bites every hour.
Every hour that for sure are giving him malaria. Yeah. Within mere weeks of each other, President Diem was overthrown by the military, and JFK was assassinated, leaving the fate of the South Vietnam in the hands of good old Lyndon B. John, Lenny John, Lenny J, Lizzie B. Gislers. Exactly, our boy, our man's,
our boy.
Now, Phoebe, would you say you are anti-president?
Yes, I would.
I figured you would say that. What if that president sent us into a bloody war without asking for permission from Congress? How would you feel about that?
I would love it. No, I would probably hate presidents more than I already do.
Yeah, no, and that's you're gonna love good old Lizzie B. Gislers, because that's exactly what he did.
Class act.
I also think like. This is a weird side tangent I was thinking about when I was doing the research, but I think it's funny how like presidents will like are like generally a net negative for humanity, I would say. Like more often than not they're really bad. But then there's always like one cool thing they do. Like there's like one tight thing they do, and then you're like all right, cool. Like Lyndon B. Johnson, he started the Vietnam War, but he also like was working on like the Equality Act in 1964 and like did a bunch of stuff like that, which is like cool. Or like how Richard Nixon like formed the EPA,
like just notorious piece of shit, but you're like, but the EPA is like pretty fucking cool, actually. That's
tight. Like the EPA is like the only government institution that I like feel okay about. You know, like they just want to make sure we don't fuck up the world.
Worse than we already have.
They have the other sectors of the government had made it very impossible for them to do that. But anyway, back to the war. By the end of 1965, the Viet Cong had control of about 40% of South Vietnam. So quite a lot. So as I said before, the South was getting their shit absolutely wrecked by the communists. But don't for a second think that everything was going amazing in the North. First Party Secretary Lou Duan started party reforms where he began to imprison and weed out any opposing views within the party, which is some dictatorship.
Yeah.
And this all was happening in 1964. Despite pressure from Republicans, Lyndon won re-election by a landslide, surprisingly. Probably because of like the whole JFK assassination situation. I don't know. I didn't look too heavily into that. But January 1965, North Vietnam was playing more aggressive tactics towards the South, and word got back to Johnson. Instead of continue to attempt a peace negotiation, Johnson opted to use military might to attempt to subdue the North. Probably because of the pressure he was receiving from Republicans at the time.
Right.
They were like, because you know, like that weird like Republican talking point where they're always like I remember it was like a big thing in like the Hillary Trump campaigns where they were like, do you think Hillary's gonna be tough on North Korea? No, we need Donald Trump. And then Donald Trump's just like homies with Kim Jong-un or whatever.
Exactly.
Like, It's weird, yeah, but it's like always like that weird Republican thing where they're like, we need a big old tough boy to be strong with the communists. I don't know. No support for Kim Jong-un, of course, but
Yeah, no, but it's true.
yeah. March of that year, the U.S. released what they called Rolling Thunder. Basically, they bombed the fuck out of North Vietnam, and this lasted about 3 years.
Jesus fucking Christ.
And like, I feel like bombs now aren't very accurate. You can't really like precision bomb anything. Like that doesn't really exist. So I mean, in the fucking 1960s,
Right.
it really didn't exist.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of cool war crimes going on.
Lots of civilian casualties.
War, what's it good for? Not much. Pretty much actually nothing.
Yeah. Can't think of a single thing.
Not a single thing. The North wasn't going to take this, though, so China and the Soviet Union provided additional troops, and the North began to wipe out about one southern battalion per week.
Jesus.
So, like, yeah, the Viet Cong and the North, the actual North Army were, like, just fucking the South up, like, constantly.
God damn.
It was around this time Johnson sent in the troops, though they wanted to make it seem like the troops' presence was just to advise and assist, as it was saying. The South, everyone kind of knew what was happening. Like, there's actually, like, interviews and stuff where people will be like, hey, Johnson, we're in a pseudo-war with North Vietnam, aren't we? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, my God.
But, yeah, like, everybody kind of fucking knew, but
Yeah.
it wasn't, again, it was never officially a war, technically, but...
Yeah.
Or at least never, like, declared war.
Yeah.
Because America was way too prideful and sure of ourselves, Johnson assumed that the war would be over by 1967 and only required a 1-year tour of duty, which was good for morale, but bad for combat, especially up against the extremely dedicated Viet Cong and the Northern Communists.
Truth.
Which, yeah, like a 1-year tour of duty is kind of like pretty short, I feel like.
Yeah.
In comparison to other wars. I don't know.
Yeah.
Other times
That's very
been killing people.
like wishful thinking.
Truly. You know what else is extremely dedicated to the communist cause? Products.
I hope. That would be cool.
This episode sponsored by the idea of communism. Yeah.
The all-encompassing.
Yeah. The concept, if you will,
Yes,
of communism.
Yes. Concept.
Anyway.
Ads. Sorry, I keep
It's okay.
hitting you in the knees.
We're back. I was just telling Phoebe that if you lived through the iOS 7 update on iPhones and or iPod Touches, you deserve a veterans discount.
100%.
I feel like we can safely say that is the official stance of the pod.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure. For sure. Moonshine just rubbed up against my leg in a very sweet way. That's why I made this like.
I know. I was like, "Are you okay?"
Just overwhelmed with joy for this cat.
She's the cutest.
She really is.
Anyway, so after the first official battle between the U.S. and the Northern Army, the North put up such a good fight that 200,000 more troops were requested, and hope of a short war was lost. So again, everybody was kind of like, hey, we fucking got this. They're just a bunch of dummy communists. And they were not dummy communists.
They were not.
Yeah. Canada, Italy, France, and England were like, damn, that war you have going on? Crazy. And wanted peace negotiations. They really hit them with the, yeah, no, that's crazy.
It's crazy. Crazy.
So the U.S. was kind of on their own. Around 1966, 20,000 American, South Korean, and South Vietnamese troops were sent to go find the enemy, and they burned down homes and destroyed villages, leaving the civilian peasants without a home and oftentimes dead in the process.
Awesome.
Very cool stuff.
Love it.
Love when we go to, air quotes, help a country and murder their people.
It's like our favorite thing to do, kind of.
It's actually kind of like our brand, yeah.
Our brand. Oh, God.
It's love it. I love it here.
Evil, evil country.
Because it was so difficult to determine if America was winning the war, they began judging by the metric of body count,
Oh,
which
my
is
God.
a very unorthodox way to like judge if you're winning a war.
Yeah. That's just dark.
Yeah, it's just awful.
Jesus Christ.
Now, Phoebe, the problem with body count is that people lie a lot.
Yeah.
And especially when they're trying to not get in trouble. So any Vietnamese body would typically be counted as the enemy, which means regardless of if it was a soldier or a civilian, it would count. And if you had a quota to meet, well, yeah, it's dark stuff.
Jesus.
Definitely. And I know that you'll be talking more about the anti-war movement, but back in the U.S., the South Vietnamese people and military also wasn't, or that sentence came out very wrong. So you'll be talking about a lot of the anti-war sentiment back in the U.S., but in the South, in South Vietnam, the people and military were also not very keen on Americans being in their country, and would reportedly spit on the American troops as they drove by, which is kind of funny. Kind of funny. And normally I'm like, yeah, fuck America, but like also the Southern Vietnamese military was also corrupt and fucked up. Like, who are you? Yeah, what are you even doing? Like, I don't know. Whatever. Johnson became worried that the U.S. and the rest of the world would see the conflict as imperialist bullying, which it kind of was.
Yeah, you don't say.
Further strife continued between the U.S. and the South. American troops were racist and oftentimes belittled and assaulted troops, as well as, on some accounts, sexually assaulted women. The distrust of the South made American troops paranoid, and many friendly fire situations took place. Yeah. And I think, that is one of the things I feel like you hear about the Vietnam War is that, like, the paranoia of, like, the American soldiers that came back, like, I feel like a lot, like every war has a lot of PTSD, obviously, but like, I feel like that war really fucked people up.
Yeah, and I feel like it's very known for that.
But yeah, like it's a well-known fact that Vietnam fucked some people up mentally. Next page. On the other hand, China and the Soviet Union were at odds with how to proceed in the battle on the northern end. China wanted aggression, and the Soviet Union wanted a peace treaty. So the Soviet Union was kind of like, hey, you're fighting a really big war.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of people dying. Maybe you should get a peace treaty. And China was like, nah, keep going. By 1967, the war was costing America about $2 billion a month.
A month?
A month.
Jesus Christ.
Think of, okay, I like to do a little thought exercise when it comes to a billion, like just the idea of billion. A billion, if I'm correct, is 100 millions. No, 1,000 millions.
Yes, I think that's right. I'm not good at math,
positive.
though. So
I'm also
don't
kind of not
quote
good.
us on this.
But
I believe that's correct.
Yeah, so like think of how much a million is.
Right.
And then think of 1,000 of those.
Yeah.
Or 100 of those. Either way, it's too fucking much. So we're spending $2 billion per month on this war.
Jesus Lord.
And American generals still said that they had a chance at winning the war. Specifically, this general named William Westmoreland was kind of fucking stupid. Like he kept fucking telling everybody that like, yeah, we fucking got this, dude.
God.
Like this war is ours, and we got it in the bag.
Got it, dude.
And I just feel like I don't know if it's like because America hasn't ever really like been be this bad,
Right.
You know, like, because again, like they kind of talk about Vietnam as like the war America lost, you know.
Sure, yeah.
So I just don't know if they just didn't know what losing looks like, and that's like why it was such an issue. But yeah, like he was so convinced they were gonna win.
Oh God.
All of this to say, America was having a bad time. The Vietnam War is just a series of General Westmoreland saying that we were winning while definitely not winning. 1968 saw the Khe Sanh attacks, or the Battle of Khe Sanh, where the North moved on the offensive to take Khe Sanh. The North claimed they won the battle, while the U.S. says they withdrew because the base was no longer required.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a classic, bro, we didn't even want that fucking base. Like, it wasn't even an issue.
My God.
Yeah.
If there's one thing America's gonna do, it's never admit when they're like wrong.
Yeah, or like if we lost or whatever. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and it's just, I don't know. Yeah, it's so funny because war, like, and especially like, I guess 20th century wars, like, it's all just like how cool you can look, you know, like as like there's all this, you know, suffering and things, and then there's like generals and higher ups that are like, all right, how do we make the U.S. people think that we're tight,
right?
Like,
yeah.
that we're fucking big strong boys.
Exactly.
It's insane. It's unhinged.
Truly.
Ludicrous.
Luda.
The North planned the attack on January 31st, which was during the Tet celebrations, which is a very important time for the Vietnamese people. It's kind of like their New Year's. Don't think that the North was blameless, though. They bombed and attacked cities with civilians as well, and wanted the South's government to collapse, causing a lot of suffering among just normal people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just to be nice and fair and balanced, if
yes,
you will.
right.
North Vietnam wasn't tight in this situation either.
Yes, no.
Though the North bombed the fuck out of the South, they expected more common people to join their side, which didn't happen. So like, yeah, when they launched this offensive, the Khe Sanh attacks, they like kind of expected a bunch of like Southern uprisings to like join them, and it didn't happen that way. And I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that just like, if you're just a normal ass person living in the midst of a horrific war, you're probably not giving a fuck at that point about whose ideology you agree with more. You're probably just like, I just want to not die.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And you know, and I feel like it was a miscalculation on both sides, like thinking that the common people would be like pro capitalism or pro communism, when it's like you're just trying to not get killed. Like, it's terrible. It's,
but it's that's the truth.
I don't know, and it's something that I just feel like I can't imagine, just because we've never had to like live through something like that, obviously, like a war torn or like a war zone or anything like that.
Exactly.
But yeah, so not that many people joining the northern side. The North eventually took over Saigon, which was the capital, but abandoned it because of the not winning over the villages. However, when the South / America retook Saigon, they burned villages, killed civilians, and reportedly raped women or used rations to pay for sex. Obviously, paying for sex isn't inherently a bad thing, but obviously the power dynamic between the northern soldiers and the starving and suffering and oftentimes terrified Vietnamese people is more problematic.
Yeah.
Lenny B finally replaced... Sorry, it never gets old.
Never.
Lenny B finally replaced General Westmoreland because, thank fucking Christ, like...
like this man's...
The man was unhinged. It was insane.
Yeah.
Ludicrous.
Luda.
Sorry.
You have to.
I have to, yeah. It's ingrained in my psyche at this point. March 31st, 1968, Johnson said he would not be calling any more attacks on Vietnam, like bombings, and that he was not running for re-election. He also decided it was time for a peace treaty. North Vietnam agreed to meet with the U.S. in Paris. Moscow was stoked, but China was obviously mad that they would even consider negotiations with the Western imperialist scum, which we are for sure.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, but again,
Also,
the amount of suffering that was
Yeah.
happening, a peace treaty is probably the
like,
best
you kind of
option.
just gotta do it.
You need to figure it out, yeah. Weeks passed by without any progress, and Viet Cong continued to attack the U.S. and the South, causing the war to look like a stalemate, which again is kind of a big issue for the South and America, because again we gotta look like we're constantly winning.
Mm-hmm.
Creighton Abrams overtook the southern U.S. forces and knew to just hold out until the Paris Peace Treaty would be agreed upon. North Vietnam was also losing tons of men by the day. South Vietnam President Nguyen Van Thieu signed a mobilization law mobilizing 1 million soldiers to go into the fight. The U.S. knew the South didn't want to end the war because the looting of civilians and the Viet Cong was getting the higher-ups V-rich and was protected by American troops.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I mean, at this point, because, we're moving into the early 1970s here,
Mm-hmm.
and at this point, we've been in Vietnam long enough that, like, American soldiers and the spending is, like, an intrinsic part of their economy.
Yeah.
So, like, they don't want us to end the war.
Right.
Or at least I should say the higher-ups do. Obviously,
Sure.
the
Yeah,
common
yeah.
people are fucking tired of
Yeah.
it. The CIA starts the Phoenix program, which was absolutely fucking evil.
Oh, good.
It was basically like this PSYOP program that they had to try to, like, sway the Southern people away from communism, or try to, like, win them back over to the side of America and the South government.
Mm-hmm.
And I know in the Phoenix program there was a lot of torture that went on of probably mostly Northern people, but I'm sure there was probably just normal Southern people that were in there too.
Yeah.
I feel like the CIA is bad at their job, so I'm sure
Yeah.
innocent people got tortured.
They tend to just kind of do whatever.
Yeah, I feel like the CIA is like they like are the kind of people that would, like, bomb a town to, like, kill one guy.
Yeah.
And be
yeah,
like-
exactly.
And they'd do that, and then they'd sit back in their chair and be like, all in a day's work.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say exactly that.
Exactly.
Cracks his knuckles.
Like, that's enough for today. Yeah. They're the kind of people that would buy a knife missile from Raytheon,
Right.
and bomb a wedding in Yemen.
Exactly.
That's exactly what they
That's
do. Yeah.
Like, exactly.
That's exactly what they have done.
Have
done. So the CIA starts the Phoenix program. This was an attempt to stop Viet Cong influence and sympathy. Nixon, being a giant asshole, convinced the U to not take part in the peace talks until after the election so that he would look better.
I swear to God.
So he's like, yo, the Thieu, he's the leader of the Southern government.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, don't be part of this peace treaty and let more people die until I'm in there, so that we can get, I can look tight.
I can get
And
good
then
ratings.
The South doesn't even end up, spoiler alert, the South doesn't even really end up making a peace, like being involved in the peace treaty at all. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Nixon plan was called Vietnamization. That's what they called it.
Stupid.
And it was this idea of, like, again, winning back over the affections of the Southern people, as well as, like, getting this peace treaty and kind of, like, reestablishing capitalism in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
The Phoenix program would continue. More South troops would pull away American military from Vietnam. So they wanted to increase the Southern army and, like, train them better, and then slowly pull out the American soldiers. That was kind of the whole idea of Vietnamization, as he called it for some reason.
Dumb.
Stupid. The South and the North couldn't make a deal, so Nixon basically said, you gotta. And Abrams set a withdrawal date for June 30th, 1972. Thieu was worried that Vietnam would end up like the Koreas, and even though Nixon promised that he would win the war, Like Nixon tells Thieu like, dog, we got this war. It's in the bag. Because again, Nixon's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And Thieu is obviously worried that there's going to be another Korea demilitarized zone.
Oh, sure.
Is that what they call that?
Yes.
Yeah. And it was going to be like this weird North-South Korea tension kind of vibe. July 8th, 1969, 814 soldiers came back to the United States. Many soldiers hated fighting and just lied about actually looking for Viet Cong and doing their jobs. So at this point, the soldiers are super over it, obviously. And again, are just lying about like going on patrol. And then, the first group of soldiers was finally pulled out in July 8th of 1969. Nixon was pretty much over the war, but didn't want to just like fully pull out of the war because, again, there was this like, I don't know, diplomatic bullshit that was going on where he's like, nah, we got you, South Vietnam, but did not actually have them.
In any way, shape, or form.
In any capacity, yeah. April 19th, 1970, 115,000 troops would be coming home over the course of the next 4 months, and this was announced by Nixon. Nixon is reported saying if nothing fruitful came out of the Paris talks soon, he would bomb the bastards right out of the earth.
Okay.
As far as the North goes, so.
Wow.
Good guy. Good
Jesus.
stuff. Nixon, stand-up guy.
Always has been.
Yeah. The North in the peace talks wanted two things: concessions for the damages from U.S. bombing, and also to put one of their leaders into the South, into the Southern government. America was not stoked on the second one.
Yeah, I imagine.
And there was like, there was this thing I read too where it was like, they were chill with the first one because they could get like diplomats to like convince the North to do like a payment plan that we just would end up not paying the full amount. So they were like, all right, that one's chill. But that second one
about that.
So it's like they weren't even gonna like actually pay the concessions.
Yeah,
like,
of course not.
Yeah. March 30th, 1972, the North surprised the South with a vicious attack called the Summer of the Flames, which lasted 3 months and was the longest siege of the war. Afterwards, 5,000 Southern men died, and at least twice as many Northerners.
Woof.
Also, interesting tidbit, Nixon authorized the first electronic bomb attacks, which many believe ushered in a new kind of warfare. So I guess the first, like, drone strike, kind of?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so we
Early
can also
drone strike
thank
technology.
Nixon for inventing drone strikes.
Super cool.
The peace negotiations finally came to an agreement of a ceasefire while U.S. troops left Vietnam, and the North would release all U.S. prisoners of war. So they finally did. Again, the South was not involved in the peace talks at this point. Lyndon B. died the night before Nixon announced that we were pulling out our troops from the war, which I feel like is kind of poetic irony.
Yeah, it is.
Like, his entire presidency and the rest of his life was consumed by Vietnam. Less than 4 months after the peace treaty, each side had violated the peace treaty about 3,000 times, the South and the North. But the North was a little bit smarter as to not, like, bring U.S. troops back into Vietnam. South Vietnam was bound to collapse because of the lack of the American spending in their country. March 29th, 1975, the North marches on Saigon, the capital, and America was not willing to help the South fight back at that point. In April, nearly all Americans were evacuated from Saigon. April 27th, 1975, the North attacked Saigon. April 30th, the last U.S. helicopter left Saigon, and the war was officially over, and the North took Saigon.
Yeah.
58,000 U.S. troops were declared to have died. And that's just the U.S. troop number.
Yeah.
That's not including, the soldiers from everywhere else.
Yeah.
And in modern dollars, Vietnam costed about $1 trillion.
Oh my fucking God.
In spending.
Good.
And
Good
again, that's adjusted
that.
for inflation. But
yeah.
So pretty much the worst thing that I don't know. I feel like it's bold to say it's the worst thing that's ever happened, but pretty bad.
Pretty up there.
Yeah, it's like one of the most horrific wars ever, for sure.
Yeah, and a big fucking mistake.
And a big mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like people kind of thought it was a mistake.
Yeah.
Which is what you're going to talk about.
I am.
But would you like to say some witty ad transfer?
Ooh, you know what isn't a mistake? Products and services.
Anchor.
Anchor. Never a mistake. Anchor. Always don't make a mistake.
Always doing good. All right, we are back.
We're back. Did you know that the Winklevoss twins, the Da Vinci, those guys, they made an NFT or like helped design an NFT that's like it's them riding on a tiger, and then one of them has like a spear and he's like stabbing COVID-19s that are like flying through the air. And it's one of the ugliest things I've ever seen in my life.
That sounds ugly. To quote you, that's so dorky.
It is so dorky.
It is very dorky, yeah. I just, do the listeners, that should be the shout-out game question. Do you like the Valley Girl accent? Because I personally love it.
Yeah. Are you into it?
I love it.
I simply cannot help it.
I could literally listen to that just over and over as like in like my earphones all day.
Yeah, it's like your like sleep thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Just over and over, me being like, dorky, stupid.
Yeah. It's another reason why I love listening to Liz from Truanon, because she also talks like that.
Similar Valley Girl accent.
It's just, and it's like, I don't know, it's just like the cadence too of your voice when you say it too. It's like, because it is like the accent, but it's also just like the pause and like the very specific syllable breakup.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I can't explain it, but it is.
I'm glad that you enjoy it, though.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm here for it.
Good shit. Well, should we talk about some Vietnam protests?
Oh, absolutely.
Cannot wait. So, the Vietnam War became a large point of contention in the United States and all over the world. I'm going to clear my throat. I don't know why this is a very, like, throaty episode.
Phlegmy episode.
Yummy. Large point of contention in the United States and all over the world, but tensions reached a boiling point when the U.S. continued the barrage of bombing on Vietnam. Many citizens who were already critical of the Vietnam War began questioning the U.S. intent in this war even harder and beginning to doubt the narrative of an oppressive communist northern government. Many of the people dissatisfied with the U.S. military and Lizzie B. Gisler's behavior in the Vietnam War were younger college-age people that were starting to wake up to the realities of American imperialism. One of the most notable groups was the Students for a Democratic Society. The SDS began in 1960 when Tom Hayden and Al Haber, graduates from the University of Michigan, formed the group along with a small collection of other like-minded people. They set out their goals in the Port Huron Statement. This manifesto of the SDS spoke about their belief in changing the quote-unquote democratic system to an actually democratic system. They talked about the power of student activism, and they condemned the United States' behavior in the Cold War. And then, as the Vietnam War became increasingly more violent from the American front, the SDS focused their efforts on ending the war in Vietnam. So,
the classic case of imperialism. Imperialism.
On April 17th, 1965, the SDS organized a march on Washington, where 25,000 people attended. The SDS grew to have over 66 chapters all over college campuses in the U.S., and the member growth accelerated with the introduction of the draft. SDS organized campus occupations, protests, sit-ins, and teach-ins. All very great tactics. One sit-in at the University of Chicago Administration Building lasted 3 days.
Wow. It's a long sit-in.
Dedicated. Dedicated.
I've never sat for 3 days.
Maybe over quarantine.
I
sat on my
don't
couch
know.
and just was like,
I did sit a lot. Yeah.
why?
I do like a good sit, honestly. Like, you ever just sit down and you're like, damn.
Oh yeah.
That feels good.
Yes. It was my friend Sarah's birthday and we like went dancing and at the end of the night, which I don't even need to get into it, but the club like stopped playing music at 1:30 and was like, everybody get out. And I was like, you close it too.
Yeah,
huh?
What the fuck?
It was really weird and it was freezing outside, so we had to like stand in the cold and wait for our Uber.
Yeah.
Dumb. But yeah, after we had been dancing, when they shut all the music off, we like went inside and sat down, and like that, like as I sunk into the chair, I was like, holy fucking shit.
You're like, oh my god,
this feels so good.
Should have just like started bumping something on your iPhone speaker, like, yeah.
They were like, get out. Like,
It's a little intense.
We're done. It was
feel
really
like
weird. I don't know
you're
why.
a club.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of what you sign up for.
Like,
is like being open late, right?
I mean, yeah.
It's like if you want to close early, like open a bakery. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It was really weird, but we still had a great night. Anyway, sit in. So, members. I was like, the fuck was I talking about? Members of the SDS were taking one of the principles of the Port Huron Statement very seriously. The idea that college education was seriously lacking, which, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of still is sometimes. The Port Huron Statement called the college experience, quote, hardly distinguishable from that of any other communications channel, say, a television set.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah. A little harsh, SDS.
Bold statement.
Yeah. SDS members started making their own free schools in Berkeley, in Berkeley, SDS opened what they called the New School and provided courses like, are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Marx and Freud.
Marx and Freud.
Which sounds like a buddy sitcom.
It does.
Marx and Freud.
Yeah.
They're like back to back.
Yeah, it's like Charlie's Angels. Like, honestly, yeah, like a crime drama thriller with
Yes.
Marx and Freud.
Yes.
All right, I'm
Freud
writing.
would be like, he wants a penis. That's what happens. That's why this murderer murdered, because he wants more penis in his life.
Wants a penis. Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
to fuck his mom, which was Freud's other like big favorite thing.
He was also really into
Really
like
weirdly into that.
in like an Oedipus.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you say it? Yeah.
I
Oedipus is actually the word.
I think that's it. Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
I'm gonna write CBS.
Do it. Pitch this.
Let me pitch you my Karl Marx, Sigmund Freud crime drama thriller sitcom.
Yes. I love it. Okay. So we had courses like Marx and Freud. We had a radical approach to science, agencies of social change, and the new movements. So pretty fucking sick classes.
Yeah, I'd go there.
Same skis. Another was started in Gainesville, Florida. And then in New York, a free university was started in Greenwich Village and provided courses like Marxist approaches to the avant-garde arts.
Wow.
Which sounds fucking amazing.
Yeah, no,
Like,
I'd eat that
what?
shit up.
Absolutely, I would. We had Ethics and Revolution.
Nice.
Life in Mainland China Today.
All right. I feel like ethics and revolution is something that we need a lot now.
Yes, like please.
Like, can we get that? Hey, Twitter, can you start an ethics and revolution class for all the leftists on there? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
SDS, where you at?
Yeah.
In Chicago, there was one simply called The School, and they had classes. I know it sounds like very...
It's ominous.
Yeah, I know it is. They had classes like neighborhood organization and nonviolence, and purposes of revolution. Which that all sounds really fucking sick, and maybe I would have gone to college if those were the classes.
Yeah, I would have not dropped out if I could take sick classes like that.
It's that meme that's like, I would have gone to school if this was the
Yeah.
lunch, this was
the
math
professors, yeah. God. It's just like cats in all of the pictures.
Yeah. If Marx and Freud was the professors. So an interesting tidbit, on October 16th, 1967, members of the SDS at the University of Wisconsin-Madison held a protest against Dow Chemical Company.
Oh.
Yes. Who was attempting, our boys, who was attempting to recruit students on campus. The protest, which was a peaceful sit-in, turned violent when cops and riot police showed up to disperse the crowd, and unsurprisingly conducted this disbursement with violent force that resulted in multiple injuries and arrests.
Yep, sounds about like cops. Sounds like what cops do.
Yeah. It's always like, oh, it was going really well until cops showed up. And
Yeah,
it's like, I wonder fucking why.
I know, it's always like, yeah, we were just like having a really chill time and like, marching for peace, and especially at a peace protest for a war. And then the cops came and started shooting people.
Yeah, like out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then the media is like, violent.
Yeah, the violent protesters.
Good Lord. Also an interesting tidbit, the FBI recruited several COINTELPRO agents to infiltrate these groups and act as spies for the U.S. The goal was to, quote, expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize the movement.
Yeah, also sounds like the FBI.
Very much.
Yeah. I feel, you know what I was saying about the CIA? That's what the FBI is, but just like here,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're just like doing all the CIA stuff, only it's in America.
It's around here, yeah.
Yeah.
Which almost is like, because again, like I feel like the CIA, they like have, like the CIA is a bunch of like spy motherfucker, like spy LARPers, and the FBI, like they do keep things pretty covert, I feel like, because
yes,
I don't know, like from what I've read, like they've had some pretty intense stuff they've done that's gone under the radar.
Yeah, they're a little better at like keeping shit quiet, which isn't good.
Yeah, it's not good
to say. So the draft was a large point of contention amongst Americans, much of the younger generation disgusted by what they had seen in World War II and what they were seeing happening as a result of the Vietnam War, joined the protests against the draft. Veterans who had fought in World War II were very offended by this new wave of anti-war sentiments. The divide between young and old was palpable at this time. One man who became very famous for dodging the draft was Muhammad Ali.
Oh, yeah. The boxer?
Yes, exactly.
Right,
yeah. Cool. Someone who doesn't really need an introduction, but Muhammad Ali is an extremely famous boxer, well known for being almost undefeated in his career and holding the heavyweight champion title for years until his refusal to join the armed forces. Early in his career, he was known as, I am hoping I'm saying this right, I think it's Cassius or Cassius Clay. I 100% forgot I was going to look up how to pronounce his first name, and then I didn't, so my apologies.
It's all right.
Which that is his birth name, but he changed his name in 1964 after converting to Islam. His faith played a big role in his life, and he was well known for speaking on it often. When he was called to be drafted on April 28th, 1967, his faith was what he cited as his reason to stay out of the armed forces. Ali was what you call a conscientious objector. This is when a person can claim the right to refuse to perform military service on the grounds of freedom of thought, conscience, or religion. Which, like, yeah. Like, that should for sure be a thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, yeah, that's definitely, like, I know, like, Amish people oftentimes will, like, obviously didn't get drafted because they're pacifists.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like more people should start thinking about that, because it's like you should 100% be allowed to be like, I don't want to go kill people. Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, and it's funny too, because like the draft is just so overtly like you're gonna go kill people.
No, yeah.
Like now, I feel like they just trick, poor communities, like poor high schoolers in poor communities to join in the military so they can go to college.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a different form of drafting.
Yeah.
Psychological manipulation drafting.
Yeah, good stuff.
Fun stuff. So this was Ali's original statement when he filed for a draft exemption, that due to his religion, he could not participate in the war. And he said about this, quote, I'm a member of the Muslims, and we don't go to no wars unless they are declared by Allah himself. However, this would not be enough. Conscientious objectors would still be subject to military service. They were at risk to be drafted and would still serve in the military, just in non-combative positions, which I think is kind of fucked up.
Yeah, because you're still, like, supporting the war, you know?
Like, you're still... That's still, like, against a person's religion if they have, like, a stance on that or whatever. So, dumb.
Yeah.
Dumb loophole, United States. Because the U.S. and the military sucks so bad that they're like, I know we technically have freedom of religion here, but we're just going to work around that a little bit and only have you murder adjacent.
You only have to like support other people who are murdering people. Yeah. Well, and yeah, it's so funny. I feel like because when you just I don't know. I don't know what the culture was like necessarily at that time, but like to get out of war, I'd claim to be any religion. Like, to get out of like having to actively shoot somebody in the face. Like, yeah, fuck that. I'm not doing it.
100%. Yeah, I would not do that. So when Muhammad found out about this, he enlisted the help of Hayden Covington, an attorney who had represented several Jehovah's Witnesses against the U.S. in fights against the draft, because in the Jehovah's Witness religion, all members are considered ministers, and the title of minister can exempt you from being drafted into the armed forces entirely.
Mm-hmm.
So, Hayden Covington created a case that Muhammad should be exempted because he was a Muslim minister, which wasn't completely untrue. Muhammad was very famous for speaking about his religion in interviews, at temples, and even in the ring. And in an interview with Chicago Daily News, he famously said, "I don't have no personal quarrel with those Viet Congs."
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I guess that's true.
Like, I think a lot of us didn't.
Yeah.
Muhammad was scheduled to go on trial just 2 months after his draft refusal. He was facing 5 years in prison, a $10,000 fine, and a 3-year ban from boxing. A week before his trial on June 20th, 1967, Muhammad attended a press conference in support of his decision to refuse military service. He was joined by Bill Russell. I don't know what I was trying to say there. Sorry, I had a weird thing in my nose. He was joined by Bill Russell, Jim Brown, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Ali said, quote, "I'm not going 10,000 miles from home to help murder and burn another poor nation simply to continue the domination of white slave masters of the darker people the world over. If I thought the war was going to bring freedom and equality to 22 million of my people, they wouldn't have to draft me. I'd join tomorrow."
Yeah.
Super fucking...
based.
Yeah, absolutely.
Based.
Well said. So the trial went poorly. Muhammad was found guilty by an all-white jury.
Wow.
Yeah. And convicted. The judge sentenced him to the maximum penalty, which was 5 years in jail and a $10,000 fine.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, stuttered. Ali was able to avoid the 5-year prison sentence with an approved appeal and staying out on bail. The World Boxing Association took this conviction very seriously and revoked Muhammad's boxing license, banning him from boxing for 3 years. So in 1971, Muhammad Ali's trial reached the U.S. Supreme Court, who overturned his conviction with a unanimous decision. Muhammad's celebrity status definitely served him well in the Supreme Court trial, and other U.S. citizens had not been so lucky.
Yeah.
By this time, the U.S. disillusionment with the Vietnam War had grown strong. The more and more men returning home in coffins, the behavior of the president, and the civil rights movement all converged to sway public opinion towards an end to the Vietnam War. So.
People were pretty fucking over it.
Yeah, people were pretty fucking sick of the Vietnam War.
Well, and again, they were spending fucking $2 billion a month on it. Like,
yeah.
There's so many. And I mean, even like Lenny B, for how fucked up it was that he did that. Like, he wanted to end the war real quick so he could do like the things he had planned to do here in our country.
Exactly.
But got caught up in this fucking Vietnam War, and it's like, yeah.
Which it's like, even today, $2 billion is a lot. Like, even to the government, like $2 billion is a lot of money.
A lot of money, yeah.
So that's fucking saying a lot.
Crazy.
Crazy. On October 21st, 1967, the largest demonstration against the Vietnam War took place. The National Mobilization Committee to End the War in Vietnam, which is a really long title.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah. They organized a march on the Pentagon, which began with a rally at the Lincoln Memorial. Over 100,000 people, including Noam Chomsky, gathered at the Lincoln Memorial to listen to a performance by folk singer Phil Oakes.
Yeah.
Woo-woo. Multiple speeches, including one from John Lewis, who called for a moment of silence for the deceased Che Guevara and David Dellinger. About half of this crowd continued on to the second part of the demonstration, the March on the Pentagon. As a group of about 50,000 approached the Pentagon, they were met with a defense line of military police, federal marshals, and thousands of army troops fitted with riot gear and rifles. They were prepared to do what it took to protect a building.
Yeah. Fun that that happened then, but who just waltzed into the Capitol earlier this year? I think it was
interesting.
The alt-right.
Yeah, weird how that happens.
Weird how that's
Weird
crazy.
how that's a common occurrence in the United States. I don't know. Something about it. Something to think about.
Again, I haven't read any history, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But it almost is seeming to me like the United States supports fascism.
That's interesting. Interesting idea, Taylor.
Interesting observation.
And not something that I've never thought about that, and it definitely doesn't keep me up at night. So as these two lines inched closer and closer, and the heat between the two groups rose until one of the barricades around the Pentagon fell, and the crowd of protesters began to pour in. The forces guarding this building started attacking. Protesters were met with tear gas, manhandling, and physical assault from the backs of rifles. This riot ended in over 700 arrests and multiple injuries. This whole ordeal lasted several hours and ended that night around midnight. This event, even though from the standpoint of many of those in attendance, they thought that it was unsuccessful, but it was actually largely influential in swaying the American public against the Vietnam War and opened their eyes to the reality of war and the position of the U.S. military. Maurice Isserman, who was 16 when he attended the March on Pentagon, said, "It was really hard for the anti-war movement to understand its own progress. In a way, we had more influence than we possibly could have known, staring up at the Pentagon."
I would have loved to have gone to one of those protests, an
Yeah.
anti-war protest
Yeah.
back then. Just feel like would have been cool.
Yeah, it would have been. They were just very powerful.
Yeah,
At
exactly.
that time,
yeah.
you know? On April 4th, 1967, Martin Luther King Jr. delivered a speech declaring his support for the anti-war movement. MLK, another person who needs no introduction, was a figurehead of the civil rights movement and was known for delivering awe-inspiring speeches about race, equality, and peace. He organized and participated in multiple marches, sit-ins, and demonstrations for desegregation, labor rights, and civil rights for Black Americans, and was obviously a huge inspiration for the rally against oppression. During his Beyond Vietnam speech, MLK noted the link between the peace movement and the civil rights movement, and I have an excerpt from this speech that I'm going to read. It's long-ish, but it's good shit.
Mm-hmm.
The man was very eloquent.
Very.
So, he says, "Let me say finally that I oppose the war in Vietnam because I love America. I speak out against it, not in anger, but with anxiety and sorrow in my heart, and above all, with a passionate desire to see our beloved country stand as a moral example of the world. I speak out against this war because I am disappointed with America. There can be no great disappointment where there is no great love. We cannot remain silent as our nation engages in one of the history's most cruel and senseless wars. America must continue to have, during these days of human travail, a company of creative dissenters. We need them because the thunder of their fearless voices will be the only sound stronger than the blasts of bombs and the clamor of war hysteria." Fucking God.
Yeah,
That is
damn.
so well said. Continues, he says, "Those of us who love peace must organize as effectively as the war hawks. As they spread the propaganda of war, we must spread the propaganda of peace. We must combine the fervor of the civil rights movement with the peace movement. We must demonstrate, teach, and preach until the very foundations of our nation are shaken. We must work unceasingly to lift this nation we love to a higher destiny, to a new plateau of compassion, to a more noble expression of humaneness. All the world knows that America is a great military power. We need not be diligent in seeking to prove it. We must now show the world our moral power. There is an element of urgency in our redirecting American power. We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now."
Damn.
Fucking hell, MLK.
Yeah. I know.
That kind of says it all.
It does say it all for sure.
Like,
It's really I don't know. Maybe I'm just a jaded asshole at this point, but I don't know. The term America's moral power,
right.
is always. I'm just if only, man.
Yeah, and there was something that he said that was oh, this is just a disgusting goes against everything America believes in or whatever.
Exactly.
And like, I know that people people still have a different idea of what America was, but like, I don't know, the way that they spoke about it was just different. But yeah, I was like, I got some bad news for you, MLK.
Well, and it's funny because like America's always said they stand for things that they actually don't.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like, it is hypocritical because we say we stand for all these things, but we don't actually.
We tend to do.
I get what he was saying.
Pretty much the exact opposite.
Exactly. Yeah.
Many musicians were inspired by the horrors they had seen from the Vietnam War and the yearning for peace. And I'll touch on just a few songs so I don't spoil too much for next week's episode.
Oh.
Little nugget of excitement for you.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was trying to say.
Phoebe's baiting you into next week's episode.
Stay tuned. So our boy, Pete Seeger, love him. He wrote a song called Bring 'Em Home. In this song, Pete says that the true way to support the troops in Vietnam is to bring them back home to America. And the song goes, if you love your Uncle Sam, bring them home, bring them home. Support our boys in Vietnam. Bring them home, bring them home. He confesses that he is not a pacifist, that if troops were to invade his home with bombs, helicopters, and napalm, like America had done to Vietnam, he would be out on the front lines against these forces. He concludes by saying the real way to provide defense for your country is with common sense and education. And it says, show those generals their fallacy. Bring them home, bring them home. They don't have the right weaponry. Bring them home, bring them home. He repeats that after everything, so I'm going to stop saying that. For defense, you need common sense. They don't have the right armaments. The world needs teachers, books, and schools, and learning a few universal rules. So yeah, true.
Tight
Pete.
stuff.
Tight stuff.
Love a Pete.
Absolutely. God, the man is iconic.
True.
In 1967, Pete appeared on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour.
I like how that was so you couldn't even say
I couldn't do it. That was just, it's such a dorky name.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So he came on that show to perform a musical act. However, CBS censored one of his songs called Waist Deep in the Big Muddy, where sorry, it's just another
these names.
funny names all in one. Where Pete talks about a very dangerous and difficult war he fought in that the troops were very unprepared for, but the smug captain pushed them to continue on and winds up dead. So the song says, the sergeant said, "Sir, with all this equipment, no man will be able to swim." "Sergeant, don't be a nervous Nelly," the captain said to him. "All we need is a little determination. Men, follow me. I'll lead on." We were neck deep in the big muddy, and the big fool said to push on. All at once, the moon clouded over. We heard a gurgling cry. A few seconds later, the captain's helmet was all that floated by. The sergeant said, "Turn around, men. I'm in charge from now on." And we just made it out of the big muddy with the captain dead and gone.
Damn.
Yes. So after describing this poorly executed and unnecessary war, Pete compares it to the Vietnam War and the bullheaded captain to Lyndon B. Johnson, who refused to pull out of Vietnam. He says, "Well, I'm not going to point any moral that I'll leave for yourself. Maybe you're still walking, you're still talking, you'd like to keep your health. But every time I read the papers, the old feeling comes on. We're waist deep in the big muddy, and the big fool says to push on." So.
Ow, ow.
Ow, ow, Pete.
Preach. Slay, queen.
Slay. Slay down the boots, Houston.
Losing my mind. Yeah.
So, I'm sure that CBS's reasoning for censoring this song was because of the anti-war sentiments, but I can't entirely blame CBS because there is that whole bit about the captain's head being chopped off and floating down a river. Just a little violent for
I guess so.
TV.
Well, I don't know, kind of violent, yeah. No, I love stories of musicians who were censored for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like Bob Dylan has a song called I think it's the John Birch Society Blues or something like that.
Oof.
And it's about him he's like this character in this song that gets freaked out by the John Birch Society about communism. It's him looking all over his house to find the dirty reds.
Oh my
and they
God.
wouldn't let him play it.
Wow.
And then he just didn't play on the TV station.
Yeah.
He was if I can't play it, I'm not going to play.
Yeah. There was some story, and maybe you posted it, about I think Pete Seeger, who did this concert, and they told him like, oh, you can't play any of like this, and this song.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, I'm not going to play these songs. And then he got on and like started playing on the guitar, and he was like, hey, audience, I'm not allowed to sing these songs, but you guys know the words.
Can.
Just so fucking sick of him.
Yeah, so tight.
God, I love you, Pete. Another amazing musician, Nina Simone, she wrote a song called Backlash Blues that I will detail in our next week's episode.
Ooh.
What could it be? Marvin Gaye was extremely affected by the Vietnam War and put together an entire album told from the perspective of a Vietnam veteran returning home to see America being plagued with racism, poverty, and injustice. One of the most well-known songs from this album is What's Going On, which was also the name of the album.
Yeah.
And I will share a few lyrics from this, but I'm definitely going to go into more detail about this song and the rest of the album next week.
I love this song, actually. The song's so good.
Oh, it's so good. I've been listening to it on repeat.
Yeah, it's tight.
So the song says, Father, Father, we don't need to escalate. You see, war is not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. You know, we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Picket lines and picket signs, don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see what's going on. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? He continues on. So the line about war not being the answer is obviously about the Vietnam War. The lines about picket signs and picket lines is about the protests for civil rights and strikes going on back in America that the veteran returns home to, which he's like, holy fuck, like, everything sucks everywhere.
Everything's bad all the time.
Which, yeah, relatable.
This just in. Things are really kind of shitty, dude.
And then the line that is so good, don't punish me with brutality, is, I believe, a line in reference to police brutality. We also have the Vietnam War to thank for the cultural reset that was celebrities poorly singing Imagine from their $1 million mansions in an effort to comfort us peasants during the COVID quarantine last year.
Did they do the same thing? Well,
no.
Imagine came out, I guess.
Yes, yeah. That's John Lennon released the song Imagine, like, because of the Vietnam War, but then, you know, that led us to here, which I was like, insert that domino meme with, like, the smallest one is the Vietnam War happens, and then the largest one is celebrities do a cringy rendition of Imagine.
Which is funny because, like, Imagine is just the Communist Manifesto. Like, it's just, it is the Communist Manifesto.
Literally.
And then it's like a bunch of rich assholes singing it to us. Like,
yeah, it's so just like, oh my fucking God. This timeline is so
the duality of man.
Yeah.
Like,
God help us fucking all. It's like akin to Chrissy Teigen throwing like a Squid Game themed party, and you're like, bitch, this is about you.
It's like Grimes reading the Communist Manifesto. I lost my mind.
That was so fucking funny. Oh my God. Did I send you that TikTok that was like, it's her, I don't even fucking know what she's talking about. She's just like, so, blah, blah, blah. And it's like some guy sitting there, and it's like, girl that you run into at a party who won't shut the fuck up. And he's just like,
Yeah, no, that's crazy.
So the Vietnam War was so drawn out, so poorly prepared for, and wholly unnecessary. It was beginning to become such an obvious mistake that the Vietnam veterans were beginning to speak out about the issues with the Vietnam War. On April 16th, 1967, at the Spring Mobilization to End the War in New York City, 6 Vietnam veterans marched together as a group as part of this protest. They held up a large banner that read, Vietnam Veterans Against the War. After the march, these 6 men got together and formed the VVAW, Vietnam Veterans Against the War. And a quote from their website says they, quote, organized to voice the growing opposition among returning servicemen and women to the still raging war in Indochina. The VVAW was actually pretty sick. They started what was a basic version of readjustment counseling, which is a service provided to veterans to help them reintegrate back into civilian life after having served, because that is obviously a very difficult transition to make.
Yeah. I feel like if you have to have intense therapy after going through something, maybe it's not good.
Yeah,
you know, like
yeah.
maybe we should stop doing that.
Maybe we should not have that happen anymore.
And especially, and again, like I got opinions on war. Let me tell you.
Yeah, for sure.
I just, because again, like I understand like fighting for your land or whatever,
Right.
you know, like if you're fighting for your home, but like I just feel like wars and how they're fought almost always with governments are always like leaders starting a war and then making us fight them.
Exactly.
Like that's how it always
exactly. Like, I mean, it's very akin to like what we see with capitalism, which is like, I mean, fucking bringing it back to Squid Game. It's like these rich assholes sitting watching through a window where we're like, like trying to just fucking survive, and they're like, ooh,
They're
interesting.
like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah, like do this thing for me that you will suffer so greatly.
Yeah.
Terrible. So the VVAW also participated in drafting legislation to help provide veterans with education and jobs. They assisted in veteran healthcare needs, which included veterans who were suffering due to the effects of Agent Orange.
Wow.
Also very tight of them, they advocated for amnesty of war resistors. They believed that those who wanted to refuse the draft should be able to do so and should not be convicted of treason.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Again, if you have to force someone to go do something, it's like, maybe you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, like maybe there's a reason why. If you're actively having to force people to do this, there's probably like a reason why.
Exactly.
So the VVAW membership increased following the Kent State shootings of 1970, and membership continued to grow from there, and now has, I was trying to find an exact number, but I couldn't, but it's somewhere around 30,000 members.
Oh, cool.
And they're still doing shit to this day.
Yeah.
So
obviously, for more recent wars.
yeah, for the wars that never seem to end.
The wars to come.
The wars that have been and the wars that will be. Also, just like interesting. So on their website, there's like this tab that's like, what the fuck did it say? It was like fake groups or whatever. And there's this other group called Vietnam Veterans Against the War Anti-Imperialist. And on the website, they were like, this is not us. This other group is not chill. Like, don't listen to them, whatever. And I just found that kind of, I don't really know. I don't know that much about the Vietnam Veterans Against the War. I know what they did during the Vietnam War, and it was very helpful and good. I don't know, what they're up to these days, but I was just kind of like, so are you saying you're pro-imperialism?
Yeah.
Like, why are you so mad at these guys?
I was telling Phoebe, I think it'd be funny if it was like a personal dispute, like the president of the original one was like, yeah, fuck Jim.
Yeah.
Jim and my ex-wife Barbara, she cheated on me with Jim, and fuck him, and he started this group, and it's like this is personal beef against.
He's like, so don't listen to anything they have to say.
He's like late at night on his fucking laptop, like typing out that section, like, fuck Jim, his group is trash, I fucking hate you.
So yeah, that's the end of my little portion, and we'll get into next week just some more things and some more stuff.
Yeah. Well, let me just say that was amazing, Phoebe, per usual.
Thank you.
Yeah, love hearing Phoebe talk about things.
Good for you, because we have a podcast.
That is kind of what we do, yeah. I mean, that's the point.
I do love hearing Taylor talk about things. We were talking about how great our podcast is. And just like it works very well because Taylor's a very good, I feel like he's very good at saying things, talking about things in a chronological order of how this event led into this event, and that's why the war, or whatever we're talking about, went this way. And I love finding one event that happened and being like, here's all this crazy shit, here's all this stuff that happened with it.
Crazy insane shit. Yeah. No, for sure. It's the yin to my yang, if you will.
The current events to my historical events.
Yeah. Let's plug some things.
Close her up. Well, if you would like to look at some pictures about the Vietnam War and the adjacent protests, go on our Instagram, which is @Remarks Podcast, and our TikTok, which is the same name.
Word. You can hit us up on Twitter. Less pictures, but more words.
Yeah. If you're a big fan of words.
If you're a big word guy. Which is at RemarksPod. And you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts as well, which is cool.
Please. There's only 3 reviews and 2 of them are from me and Taylor.
Exactly. And then I have a YouTube channel called The Lefty Agenda, and I just posted a new video about Squid Game.
Yes.
And also Ben Shapiro and how much of a dork he is.
Oh my god, that man's.
That fucking guy. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, so look that up if you want.
Yeah. And then as our listener question, do you enjoy my Valley Girl accent?
We can pick a different one. I just,
I thought last week, actually, I mean, tell us anyway about that. But I was thinking last week, because we were on the kick about talking about cartoons, what is your favorite, like, I guess it doesn't have to be like early 2000s cartoon, but yeah. What's like your favorite?
Your favorite cartoon. Or even just like kids show maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like a live action one. I don't know.
Yeah, like iCarly or something.
Love an iCarly. I love iCarly. Anyway.
Taylor's watched a lot of YouTube videos about that.
Yeah, I mean, shout out Quentin Reviews for his fucking like 3-hour long iCarly videos. It's like, I don't know. I don't want to sound weird. It's just interesting because he literally just does like these crazy in-depth dissections of a kid's show that I watched religiously growing up.
Right.
So
Yeah. No, it's interesting.
I enjoy him.
Absolutely. Well, that's that, folks.
That's that.
Lastly, there's nothing on there yet, but we have set up a Patreon.
True.
We will put things on there, and once we do, we will tell you.
Yeah.
And if you want to support us and also get some cool access to cool shit.
Yeah. We're going to do some fun stuff. We are probably going to try to get some merch in the works.
Yes.
Which we'll send you merch for. I assume we can probably sell it on Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what goes on. But yeah.
Yeah.
It hasn't launched yet, but when it does, we'll let you know.
We'll post about it fervently. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Okay, love you. Bye.